For this first exercise, you should have located and downloaded the Exaggerated Sandwich Animate file and opened it up in Adobe Animate. If you go up to your timeline, you can open up both of the folders for the rough animation and the cleanup, and go ahead and make sure all those layers are locked down. In addition to this, we can go ahead and turn off visibility for the hand sandwich, the right and the left arm, and also the body. All we want to focus on for this exercise is going to be the head animation. To do this, as you scrub over the timeline, you can see how the rough animation will give you an idea of where the head will be and the basic shape that it should be animating into. The first thing I'm going to do is to go to my head layer and unlock that layer, and then move my playhead over to this first keyframe on my rough animation that shows the head moving into position. With that frame selected, let's go to that 12th frame, that's the frame we're on here, and let's add a keyframe on the head layer by hitting F6. With that done, we can go down to our animation, select the head. I'm going to use my arrow keys to nudge it down till it's nice and roughly into place. So there it is, into place there. The next thing we need to do is to double click on the head, and this will bring up the head isolation mode, and I've expanded my layers down so I can see every single layer that's inside of the head layer. If you don't see the eyes, you can also open up the eye folder as well. With the 12th frame selected inside of the head area, let's click and drag and select all of the frames within that row. When we hit F6, this will give us a keyframe right there that we can start the animation of the head. Next, let's return to scene 1, and then let's scrub back over to the next keyframe within our rough animation, which will be frame number 15. This is where the head comes back up and the mouth starts to open wide. So with the 15th frame selected on the head layer right there, let's hit F6 and add another keyframe. Then go down to our timeline and let's move our head straight up roughly into position right there. Now you can also notice on this one there is going to be a little bit of stretching and distortion, so I'm matching that up to the top of my hairline with that. The final thing we need to do is to double click on the head and then select just the 15th frame within all of these by clicking and dragging down. There we go. With all of those selected, hit F6, and that will give you a keyframe for everything within that particular area. So from here, now that we've got a set of keyframes inside of the head, we can go through and start to animate the position of the head as well as the morphing and changing of the head. We want it to go from a closed mouth to an open mouth position. Let's take this one thing at a time and actually animate each of the different parts as needed. I'm going to go up to my timeline and I'm going to turn off visibility for all of my layers till I can't see anything on there. And let's take this one thing at a time. Now, some things will be animated and some things will not. If you notice on our timeline, remember, frame number 12, this entire column here, is the starting point. And what we want to animate is this second column, all of the frames in frame 15. So I've got frame 15 for my nose, and let's turn on the nose and see its position. I can see the nose is actually already in position, and it really doesn't need to change, so I'm going to keep that the same. If I open up my eyes, however, I can see based on my rough animation that my eyes are supposed to get much wider. The eyebrows are going to move up, and the eye pupils and lids themselves are going to get taller and stretched out. So that's one thing that I do need to animate. Going back up to my timeline, I'm going to again turn off each individual layer for my eyes, and let's do the eyebrows first. I'm going to select the right eyebrow, or eyebrow right. Again, make sure the 15th layer is selected, and all I have to do is to go to this eyebrow. I can use my move tool, bring it up into position. Next, going back up here. Now, since this eyebrow isn't necessarily a saved symbol, we're going to be doing a shape tween instead of a regular classic or motion tween. So choosing the 12th frame, I'll right click or control click on it, and let's do a shape tween. Notice that this will give you a brown arrow or an orange arrow. Now, as I scrub over it, you can see how it's going to move up into position from its last part. Let's go to our left eyebrow. Turn on visibility for the left. Make sure you choose the 15th frame. Go down to that left eyebrow, and with my move tool, I can bring it up. If you want to, you can swap over to your transform tool, and you can even rotate it just a bit. Adds a little bit more to the exaggeration. Again, returning to our timeline, you can choose the 12th frame now, two-finger click, and do a shape tween to there. Turning on the right pupil, again, make sure the 15th frame is selected. You can see for this one, it's really not going to be moving all too much. If anything, we're going to stretch it out some. So I'm going to hit Q, hold down Option as I click and drag, and that will bring it down just a bit. Choose V and go back to there. Again, go back up to our timeline and create a shape tween with that. Let's do our left pupil. With that selected, make sure you got the 15th frame selected. Going down here, select it, hit Q, hold down Option as you click and drag to stretch that out. I can go back to V to get my move tool. Go back up to my timeline, control click, and do a shape tween. Finally, the left and the right eye. Unlock the right eye, choose the 15th frame. With it done and selected, I'm going to choose Q. Hold down my Option as I click and drag the bottom part till it matches the bottom of there, and the top part till it matches the top up here. If yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. It's nothing I'll count off for. With that done, return to your timeline, control click, turn on a shape tween, and finally let's do the left eye. Turn on that left eye, choose the 15th frame. That eye selected, hold down the Option or Alt key, drag down, Option Alt, drag back up, and then finally return to your timeline, control click, and do a shape tween for that. If you want to test it, you can see how all of that's going to stretch out really nicely as I go back and forth for it. Now the next thing we'll go to is our cheek line, left and right. With those, I'm going to turn on both of those. They're very, very small, but this gives you an idea of where your mouth will be when it lines up with the cheeks. And in this case, we do want these to be moved over. In this case, the mouth, the top of the cheek will be up here, and it'll move back up here. So going back up to my timeline, let's do the left cheek first. Again, make sure you got the 15th frame selected. Choose my move tool, and that cheek one is this one right here. And I'm going to use my arrow keys and nudge it into place to be right there. Again, go back up to our timeline, right click, choose shape tween. Finally, the cheek for the right, turn it on, choose the 15th frame, go down to our figure, so here's this one. Even though it's called the right, it's technically his right, not our right. And then we'll nudge that into place there. With that done, two-finger click, make a shape tween, and you can test those two as well. You can see how they're going to move into place. I'm going to skip over the mouth, the patch, and the jaw for now. Let's focus on the left and right ear. So I'm going to go to the left ear and turn it on. You can see there's the ear there. That particular ear, excuse me, let me zoom back out so I don't lose it. That particular ear isn't necessarily moving anywhere that's off for this, but it is kind of rotating upward, so we're exaggerating that stretch that's happening with him. So with the left ear selected, the 15th frame, we have it. We'll choose Q and we'll rotate it up just a bit. With that done, we'll go back to our timeline. Now, this one is saved as an actual shape or as a symbol. So for this one, we are going to use the classic tween. This would give you the purple arrow. Let's do the same for the right ear. Turn on the right ear, choose the 15th frame. With that one selected, I'm going to kind of rotate it up, maybe nudge it over. And just like the left ear, because it is already a symbol, we're going to right click and choose classic tween for it. Then we can do our head. Turn on the head, and you can see that the head itself doesn't necessarily move or change. So we're going to keep it exactly the same. No changes for the head. Now let me show you this. If I turn on my jaw, the head has a top part of the head, and the jaw, you can see, has this bottom portion. There's this ugly line that's dividing it out. That line is necessary whenever doing the drawing for this particular part because we want to be able to keep the top head the same but draw a separate object for the lower jaw. Now to cover up that ugly line, they've added a patch layer. I'm going to turn that on, and all that patch layer is just a rectangle that they placed right on top of it to cover it up. Actually, if I was to select it, you can see there's the rectangle that's on top. So that rectangle is going to come in handy, and it will be moved around once we start animating the jaw itself. So for now, let's turn back off that patch. Now keep it for there. And the jaw is what we want to focus on. The head we're not going to do anything to, but that jaw will start to move. That jaw is going to go from a closed position to the open position that you can see down here at the bottom, how it gets really, really wide and way open. Now the jaw and the mouth are two different things, so we want to draw these as two separate objects. So with the 15th frame selected, you can select this jaw shape, and I'm going to delete it away. We want to be able to redraw the jaw to match the rough animation that's below. So I'm going to square it up here, over to my Tools panel, and select my Paint Brush tool. Remember, this is the brush that's got the extra little squiggle added to it, and with it selected, I can go to my Properties panel, set my stroke color to be black, my stroke width to be 5 point, and change my profile to be this one with the tapered edges to it. This is profile number 3. Do make sure that you want to get the one with the edges and not the one that has the full taper along the entire body. This is the one that's important. Finally, make sure your object drawing mode is turned on. This means whenever you test it by clicking and dragging and then selecting the object, you should see that blue bounding box. If you don't see a blue bounding box and you're only selecting part of the line, then you've got object drawing mode turned off and you need to turn it on. Now, when I draw the outline of this particular shape, I want it to be smooth. So if you go to the drawing options for the paintbrush, make sure smooth is selected. And I want to have it overlapping the top part of the head just a little bit, going all the way around the edge and making sure it connects to the two corners of the top part of the head. So if I was to draw this, I'll start off, say, right here so I can see it, go to the edge, and then carefully go down. Now, if you make a mistake like I did, simply undo it and start again. Take your time in drawing it off. It does have a little chin dip down here. If yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. Again, I'm going to meet up at this edge here, and I'm going to go straight across, just make sure it overlaps the top of the head. And then we'll bring it back to the beginning part right here. Now with that done, you should be able to go get your paint bucket tool, go to your properties, and select the skin color by choosing the fill color and then clicking on the skin itself, and that'll pick that up. And you can click on the inside to fill it in. Now if yours is not filling in, do make sure you check the gaps on it by either closing out the gaps or closing the small gaps. And if it's still not doing it, simply erase away your outline and draw it over again. Now this is where that patch is going to come in handy. If we go up to our timeline, I'm going to turn on my patch one more time and select that 15th frame on the patch layer. Remember, this patch, all that is just a rectangle that you can see here. We want to be able to move it down and into position so that it covers up and gets our entire jaw right in the same spot. Now, if you need to, you can choose your quick transform tool and maybe scale it in just a bit. As long as the edges match up, that's what we want. And this needs to be animated too, even though it's slightly. So with the patch layer selected, go back to our 12th frame, right click, do a shape tween, and then it should move into position as well as it moves from there to there. Now that we've got the jaw drawn off, the last thing we need to draw off is our mouth position. Now, in order to see where our mouth needs to be, I'm going to go back up to my layers and let's turn off that jaw layer and even the head layer. And for the sake of it, I'm going to turn off my patch too. Let's return back to frame number 12 and do make sure you got your mouth layer selected. So frame 12 on the mouth. If I was to turn it on, you can see how the mouth stretches from one corner to the other. And for this one, it's actually going to start opening at this position. So with frame 12 selected, I'm going to choose my mouth and delete it away. And I'm going to redraw. Again, here's the corners of my mouth, just a small mouth that's starting to open up. I'm going to go to my toolbox. This time I'm going to choose my regular brush tool. This is the brush that doesn't have the squiggly line, and whatever I paint is going to be my fill color. So with it selected, go back up to your Properties panel, set your fill color, in this case now, to be black. Make sure Object Drawing Mode is now turned off. And so with it off, we can paint and fill in however we wish. Second, if you go down to your brush options, do make sure you're working with a nice rounded brush, and the size of the brush is going to be set to 5. Later on, we'll fill things in, but that 5 should match the outline of everything that we have. Now, again, we're on frame number 12, and this is just the starting of the mouth opening up. So all I'm going to do is click and drag and draw my mouth following along that line, but matching up to right there. And then finally coming down and just barely opening up to be right there. And I'm going to fill this in with white as if you see his teeth filling in. Now it's not going to see very much since there's white behind it, but I'm just going to grab my paint bucket tool, grab some white, and with one click I should be able to click and fill that in. Again, I can't see it too much, but I do know that it is nice and filled in and it's there. Zoom back out. Now we were working in the 12th frame there. Let's go back up to our timeline, and on the mouth layer, let's choose that 15th frame that's going to open the jaw all the way up to. Again, we're going to choose our regular black paintbrush, and I'm going to get rid of the mouth line that's there, so delete it away, and let's redraw my jaw, or excuse me, my mouth that fits right here. So again, clicking and dragging, still had white selected. Make sure you got your fill color set back to black, the way Lord intended. And then let's go down here. So again, I'm going to click and drag and draw off my top of my mouth here. And this is maybe where I do need to see my actual jaw. So I'm going to turn my jaw layer back on so I can see the edge of it. And I'm going to let my mouth fall just inside of it. Really big, going around. I'm not following closely to the edge of the jaw because we want to still see the chin, but we'll let it go all the way back up to this point right here. Finally, we want to be able to see his teeth and also his tongue down at the bottom. So I'm going to click and drag along here. Now if you do make a mistake, simply Command Z and undo. This is where a drawing pad does come in handy. So there's his teeth for there. To fill in the teeth, all I've got to do is select my paint bucket, change my fill color to white, and one click on the inside. Got everything. We want to be able to just fill in that particular area that's in that side. So to do this, I've undone the fill in. Let's go up to our jaw and turn off visibility for the jaw. Now when I click on the inside of it, you can see just the teeth filled in with that one. So that actually looks much, much better. With that done, we can turn our jaw, we can actually keep our jaw turned off, and we can see that we need to draw the tongue at the very bottom portion of this. Again, go back and grab our paintbrush tool, the paintbrush selected, set our fill color back to black, and let's draw off the tongue. So all I'm going to do is just give it kind of a little overlap with that one. With those done, grab our paint bucket one more time. We can fill in the inside of here being solid black, and then we can change our fill color back to red and fill that part in there. Now, especially when we turn our jaw back on and even the upper part of the head and the patch, you can see how that entire mouth is now opened up. The next trick is to be able to animate the jaw and the mouth going from a closed position to the open position. And the only way to do this effectively is through a frame by frame animation. Now, if you look at our timeline, you can see that there's only 2 frames between the 2 extremes that we already have. So we're not having to do a lot of different drawing for this animation. But we are going to focus on doing the jaw first and then the mouth. In order to see this, I'm going to go back up to my design. Let's go back to the 12th frame that we have, and I've got the jaw layer selected. With that jaw selected, let's go to the next frame. This will be frame number 13, and let's insert a keyframe there. And then with that keyframe done, we can select the jaw and delete it away. Now, I want to be able to see where my original jaw was and kind of where we're moving to. So this is where turning on onion skin may help. With onion skin, I can see where the purple jaw was my original starting point, and I want to be able to draw something that's in between the first extreme and the second extreme. So with that done, I can grab my paintbrush tool or my brush tool, either one that would work in this case. In this case, I like the brush tool. So I'm going to set my fill color to black, and then I want to be able to draw my jaw line somewhere in between. Again, keeping this in between this area, I'm going to start off right at the edge of the jaw, and then draw down and kind of match the look of the jaw that's there. Again, it's going to be getting wider and bigger. You want it to exaggerate. You want to be able to see it. And then again, we'll go back up here and connect it back to the original starting point. With that done, I can grab my paint bucket tool, change my fill color to that skin tone. Luckily, I had the skin tone selected. And then I can fill in that skin tone. You may have to turn off your onion skinning in order to see that. Now with that done, you can look at your design and see if you need to be able to tweak it. In my case, I need to make the jaw just slightly bigger to reach the edges, and I'm going to bring it up so that it gets covered by the patch that's there. So with that done, I'm going to select everything that's on this layer. Maybe I have to lock down all my other layers so I don't accidentally select something else. So just the jaw is now unlocked. Select everything. I'm going to use my quick transform to bring it over just a bit on either side. Just up a bit so that it's nice and covered up. That done, that's looking pretty good. We're not going to worry about the mouth, just the jaw. So with that second jaw frame selected, let's go to the third one here. So this will be frame number 14. With 14 on the jaw layer selected, hit F6. That'll give us our new keyframe. We can delete away everything on that jaw layer. And then finally, let's turn back on our onion skin. And so I need to draw something that's in between all of these, that goes around and gets to there. Again, I'll grab my brush tool, set my fill color to be black, and in this case, I'm going to draw off, again, starting on this edge, coming down somewhere in between those two. Now don't like the look of that, so I'm going to undo and start again. Coming down, I want to make sure that I get that chin that's starting to bulge down as well. That looks better. And again, it's curving back around to the starting position for there. That's looking pretty good. Again, in order to see it well, I'll turn off my onion skin, grab my paint bucket tool, set my fill color to that skin tone, and then be able to fill it in, and that works out pretty well there. Now that I've drawn off each of the keyframes for my jaw, when I scrub over it, you can see how it will look like the jaw is growing outward to take the bite. The final thing we need to do is to animate the mouth in the same way. So again, going up to my panel, we'll lock down the jaw, and let's unlock the mouth layer so that we can select it and work on it. Going back to this 12th frame, the first little keyframe for here, we've got that already drawn off, so that looks good. Let's go to the next frame over and insert a keyframe, F6. With that one done, we can delete away the mouth, and let's draw the mouth somewhere in between those two extremes. Again, to see that, we'll turn on our onion skinning. You can see there's my smaller mouth, but now my mouth needs to start to move upward and then open up much, much wider. So I'm going to grab my paintbrush tool. Let's do the black outlines first. So with that one, choose black. You can see this is going to start to move upward to there, so I'm going to start drawing off the top portion here. That looks good. And then start to open up pretty wide. Go around to match. Now, one mistake that I did, I'm going to undo that, is I need to follow along the shape of my jawline. So let me redraw that again. So click and drag, following along the shape of that jawline. That'll be the guidelines to keep with this. There we go. Now it's sitting in there. I can draw off the teeth because I know the teeth are there. So let's draw some teeth in. And then finally, let's draw that tongue. It should just barely start to be peeking over the edge. With all that done, let's turn off our fill color, or excuse me, our onion skin, grab our paint bucket tool, and let's fill in the appropriate parts. Choose white, fill that in, choose red, and fill in that lower part. With that one done, let's return to our mouth layer, choose that third keyframe, so this should be keyframe number 14, hit F6 and make a new one there. With that done, we can delete it away. Now I need to draw a mouth that fills this particular jawline. We'll grab our paintbrush tool, again, set our fill color back to be black, turn on my onion skin so I can see where everything is starting to move towards, and then let's draw off this one here. So again, matching up top edge, and then I can see the outline of my jawline, so I want that to match, start to get a little bit larger. So it goes down and around, back up to there. That looks good. Again, we'll get his teeth. Teeth are going to be roughly in the same spot anyway, so we'll follow that. I should be able to see just a little bit more of his tongue now. Draw those off. Turn off your onion skin, see what you got. That looks good. Go over here, grab your paint bucket tool. One click on the inside of there. Set your fill color for your paint bucket to be that. And fill color to be red. And fill in the red with that. Perfect. Now that we've done a frame by frame for the mouth and the jaw, when I scrub over it, it looks like his mouth is opening up. Pretty cool. All right, with that done, we can zoom back out. Do make sure you saved what you got. and you can see all of the layers working together, especially once you've got them turned on. We'll lock down our mouth layer so I don't lose it. Finally, let's go back to scene number 1 and let's animate the mouth moving from one position all the way up to this position here. Now you can see how the lower portion looks like it's not visible. That's because it's being covered up by the rough animation. If you go up to your rough animation layer and just turn off visibility for it, then you can see your jawline. So it's moving from here to here. What we want to be able to do is also animate this and not have it jump so much. So finally, now that we're on scene 1, let's go to our head, select this 12th layer, right click on it, and let's do a classic tween to move it from this position all the way up. So now it's naturally moving and opening its jaw at the same time. That looks really good. From here, let's save it up, and let's go to the second part of this exercise that has him taking the final chomp.